All right, so welcome, y'all. Welcome to this week's edition of the Cheap Pop Podcast. I am back once again, with my boy Alpha. This time, we're here to talk a little wrestling, little WWF /E/U/W. Now, little WWE. I'm currently watching NXT, this week's NXT as we speak. Just got done watching this week's AEW, and I actually have some thoughts on AEW as a whole, just because of the fact that once again the comments from the doldrums of the AEW fan page on Facebook is just one that. Okay, so I'll kick us off with this. AEW.
Get right into it.
All right, so we all remember the sad and tragic death of Mr. Brody Lee. Way too young, 41 years old. There was a lot of argument over what was done for him by AEW versus what was done for him by WWE. Which, by the way, you can check on the WWE network right now. They have a tribute to Brody Lee that you can watch on the free version of the network. It's basically all of his best matches is Luke Harper. But here's the deal. AEW, to me, and I kind of had this epiphany watching it today. It kind of gives me the feel of ECW from the sense that it's obvious that the wrestlers are the ones making the decisions. You know what I'm saying? There's not like Tony Khan. Yeah, he's the boss, but pretty much I get this feeling that whatever a wrestler comes and pitches to Tony Khan, Tony kind of goes, sure, run with it. See what happens.
Right.
You know, like it's not really a lot of like Tony saying, this is the show I want to put on. It's basically a guy with a lot of money saying, what kind of show do y'all want to put on? And I like that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not in any way saying that this makes anything negative about AEW. But it does make it, to me, a little bit less professional of a presentation than what we're given with WWE. I think WWE has refined their presentation to do it how they want to do it. AEW is still finding their way in that particular regards, because I noticed a lot of repetition. I watched two amazing matches starring 6 to 12 of the best wrestling superstars in the business today. I'm speaking about the match between Private Party and Matt Hardy, and what were they called? Top Flight and Matt Sydal, which, by the way, Pete, shout out to Evan Bourne. Nice to see him back in the ring again doing his thing. But you know, we're looking at guys that these guys just, they put on a hell of a match. But you had your classic spot that you have in just about every match when you have a multi-man match that big, where each set of people had their moments. And you understand what I'm saying, Alpha. You watch wrestling long enough.
Yeah, I know every guy gets their spot, gets their time in to get their move in to look good for a minute. Yeah, especially in those high-octane AEW multi-man matches, right?
Exactly. And I saw that happen twice over the course of one show, over the course of 1 2-hour show. Two matches that basically had the same kind of build to them. They built to the same momentous moment where everybody kind of got their moves in, and then you eventually came around to a winner. I'm not saying that this formula doesn't work. WWE still uses it to this day, but you very rarely ever see it multiple times in the same episode.
That's right.
You know, and so at the end of the day, I'm very, very, very impressed with what I saw, because, like I said, that 6-man multi-tag team, the MJF and Jericho versus Sammy and Jake Hager and all of that.
Full determination for the official tag team. Yeah, that was a really good match. Like,
you know, yeah.
To no surprise, in my opinion. Like, you know, the moment they announced it, it was like, oh, that's going to be a fucking banger.
Yeah, big time. And I can say this too, though. one last thought before I let you take it away on AEW is that they had a young lady, I think her name was Letitia, or all I know is she was 4'11", and she could wrestle her ass off. But here's the only problem, and this was because of me. This had nothing to do with anything she did on the show. I'm not blaming her in any way. All I could see was tiny Shayna Baszler, and I kept I kept wanting. I kept coming up with this idea that they needed to bring her over to WWE, pair her with Shayna Baszler, and call them the Submission Sisters. And I would, man, I would love to see it. Like, but no, she was an amazing wrestler.
It's really cool in the hindsight when you think about it like that. But when you kind of think about it like Finley and Hornswoggle, it gets a little bit even funnier. Comes out of the ring and shit.
Very true, very true. Man, I tell you that I did like I said, I like what I saw. I will give you this moment as well. My fiance was laying down trying to take a nap while I was watching AEW. And she sat straight up and goes, I don't know who the announcer is, but his voice is fucking annoying. I can't continue my nap right now because his voice is just so flipping annoying. And I was just like, wow. I was like, you realize you're talking about like JR, right?
Oh,
no. like this was the man that was the voice of the Attitude Era alongside with Jerry the King Lawler. And she's like, I don't care.
The best era of wrestling.
Exactly. And she's like, I don't care. It was annoying. And I was just like, oh my God. JR has went from the best commentator ever to annoying. But go on ahead, bro.
Opposite of the seal of approval, you know, the seal of hatred.
Pretty much.
Yeah, no, I feel it, man. I think starting from the beginning, you know, I was going to save it for the last part of the show, but I can definitely get it in now. I think, you know, it's it was a real, like, for me personally, it wasn't intense. I'm not going to sit here and act like I knew the guy personally, but after following his career as long as I have, you know, and looking at him in such an amazing light, and even without including him as a human being and the complete outpour of support that has been cascading for a month and a half now, right? You know, it was really hard for me seeing Brody Lee go. You know, much like a lot of other people, I followed his whole career, watching him and screaming, like, you know, give this dude a fucking title, give this dude main event. Like, the closest he got was winning the IC title from Dolph Ziggler in like 2016. Yeah. And I was eclectic. I loved that shit. And you know, he came to AEW and almost instantly was put into a really good position as the leader of the Dark Order. And I will admit, you know, the Dark Order had a lot of flubs up. It had a lot of messed up parts, and I'm not going to act like it was the most perfect thing in the world just because it was associated with Brody Lee.
Oh, not even close.
But what he did with it individually, I feel, put the Dark Order in a really good position.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I have a lot of respect for what he did and for him in this industry, and it's going to be really weird knowing that he's not here. Like, yeah. He was a really solid worker, and seeing people like John Moxley talk about them the way that he has is fucking heartbreaking, because some of my favorite matches of all time will always be Brody Lee versus John Moxley in CZW pre-2009. You know, them just tearing each other up in like fucking backlots and backyards. Some of my favorite matches. And, you know, every time I watch those matches, you know, I'm gonna see that, and it's gonna make me pretty sad. But I'm proud to have been able to be there to even experience it. You know, but
he was an amazing in-ring and in-ring talent, and evidently, based off the love shown to him throughout since his passing, the man as well, it was an amazing man. You know, there's been love shown to him across all boards. There were some that were upset that he wasn't given the 10-ring salute or 10-bell salute.
For the SmackDown special, he wasn't, but for AEW special, he was, though.
He was, okay. Here's I'm gonna jump into a little, how do you say?
Wait, hold up.
Go.
I was gonna say, let me get on that last thing you had for AEW real quick.
Okay. No, this is AEW driven, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I do agree on that last portion too, though, on the idea of presentation versus substance is like the way
Mhm.
is the way I like to word it. I'm not going to say WWE has no substance or they have nothing to present,
Yeah.
but if we're looking at what is AEW good at versus what does WWE have, WWE has over New Japan, over Ring of Honor, over AEW, over everything in terms of one thing, and that's production value.
Oh, yeah.
If AEW had the production value of WWE, this shit would be over. But the fact of the matter is, WWE doesn't have that financial backing to be creating that level of production value and
Yeah.
that air of being the biggest wrestling promotion in the world.
Contrary
Whereas
to popular belief, Saeed Khan is not willing to spend all $7 billion of his dollars
on
on exactly.
exactly. Like, but you do have it right there. AEW has a very specific style. If you start looking close enough, and they have a certain thing, a certain level of ticks that they hit. And you're right.
Mhm.
I think that is a lot on part to the fact that this is a very wrestler-driven show. A
Yeah.
lot like ECW, you can see that this isn't really about a writing team. This is
Right.
about the wrestlers working it out as they would at any given show in the smallest show in LA all the way up to selling out Double or Nothing.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was something that I noticed. Like when I was watching the match between damn it, with Layla, I forget what Layla Wright, I think is her
Yeah,
name.
yeah.
The short girl. When I was watching the match between her and Penelope Cruz, that was the feel I got from it. Is I got a how do you say, a backyard, like Oakland hood slam, Alameda high school gym type feel from it. And that's not knocking AEW.
That's not an insult.
That's not, because to an extent, when you talk about wanting to bring the indies to life, that's what you want to reproduce on a visual level, is you want to reproduce that feel. But the problem with that is that feel doesn't necessarily appeal to everybody. And what I mean by that is the casual fan is okay to go to a indie show every 6 months, 8 months, every now and then, just for the feel, but they're more likely to tune in to Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, than they are a show that gives them that feel on a weekly basis. I've mentioned this before on this show, and I've mentioned it before when I was doing the Raw Impact Unleashed with Cole. Hardcore wrestling fans are such a small portion or group of total wrestling fans as a whole. And I don't think a lot of us realize that. Like, I think a lot of hardcore wrestling fans think that most of wrestling fans are hardcore. And at one time that was true. When you peaked out the Attitude Era, yeah, the bulk of that was hardcore wrestling fans.
98, 99, 2000?
Yeah.
You can definitely make a case that was probably the biggest spike in hardcore wrestling fans ever, especially with ECW,
Exactly.
all of that all being convergence at that point. You can make a real good case about that. But definitely in 2021, I'm not going to look at you and say the wrestling business is dead. But is it predominantly casual fans though? Yes.
Casual fans are where the money is at, and unfortunately, WWE has the type of presentation that draws in casual fans. They have the names, even if it's old names, even if it's people that you don't like Oldberg and everybody else. WWE has the names that draw. Brock Lesnar, these are names that draw. Yeah, they're old guys. But just like Ric Flair was an old guy in the early 2000s, but you know why he still was one of the main events of WrestleMania for his retirement match? Because Ric Flair still to this day is a draw. You put his name on a headline, and people are going to want to show what people are going to want to put eyes on it.
Ric Flair is going to be reduced down to a pile of dust in a suit and glasses. And people will still pay millions of dollars to see him bump his ass off.
Yep. And so people have to understand that unfortunately we live in the age of the casual when it comes to pro wrestling. And Vince understands that. Tony does too, to an extent. He's trying really hard.
That's why we see deals with Jay and Silent Bob. That's why we see deals with American Dad. And I'm not saying he's a fucking shill for that.
No.
What I'm saying is, he's trying to get that mainstream appeal. He's trying
exactly
to get for the casual crowd, which on his part is a smart fucking move.
Exactly. Now, the idea that you're going to take so much of the casual fans away from WWE that it that,
You've locked up, my boy.
have I?
Oh wait, there you go. Never mind, you're good. You're
All
good.
right.
You're
I'm
locked
gonna
up.
say
You're good now. Keep going.
WWE. You know, people look at it and go, you know, WWE. We're gonna take all those fans, or they're gonna see AEW and they're gonna be so enamored with it, they're gonna say screw WWE. When the more likely scenario is that they're gonna see AEW, they're gonna watch for a few weeks, then they're gonna go back to watching WWE. It's not that AEW is bad. It's just that you have to have that desire, that fire in your gut for pro wrestling to watch AEW. You really do. Because or that fire in your heart for just something different than WWE. That's a lot of AEW's fan base, and it's sad to say. But that is about 10 to 20% of AEW's fan base. It's just people who want to see something that's not WWE because they've grown to hate WWE. They didn't do what I wanted them to do. You know how I feel about these people, man. Like, come on, man. Anybody that looks me dead in the eye and says that WWE is the only game out there and they suck and that's why I stopped watching wrestling, I'll take your wrestler's card now, please, sir. You never are and never will be considered a wrestling fan. Consider me the Van Helsing of wrestling fans. I will go snatch your wrestling card if you come at me with that WWE is the only game in town. There were literally 10 you within a 100-mile radius, especially in California. You can find at least another 10 pro wrestling schools with shows every weekend.
If you're on the East or West Coast, there is almost nothing you can say. I mean, of course, this is a pandemic. I'm not going to say that, we can walk out and go right into a show right this goddamn second. But, I mean, talking outside of all the circumstances and shit, you're right. Especially on the East and West Coast, anyone with any bit of knowledge in the wrestling community has an understanding that there is an almost oversaturation of content on both sides of that. There is so much shit for you to indulge yourself in if you're really looking for something different, and especially niche, like not even diving into the different promotions that I know off the top of my fucking head, not only in this area but in California.
Okay, and here's the thing that gets me. Okay, say you think all American wrestling sucks. Well, guess what? There's like 500 independent in different wrestling shows in Europe. Or guess what? You could take your ass to Japan where there's like 1 or 2 major and 500-1,000 other ones. You could take your ass to Australia and there's multiple wrestling companies. Like if you don't want to deal with American wrestling, there you could go to Mexico. Just go a few miles south of the border and you got AAA.
AAA are fucking bangers.
So there's no excuse for any wrestling fan to say that there was anything other than WWE. There's nothing other than WWE to watch. If you stopped watching because you thought WWE was the only thing you could watch, then you were never a wrestling fan because you never looked. Like I've known about some of these other companies in other countries like AAA and so on and so forth back since the Hulk Hogan days. Because if you picked up a Pro Wrestling Illustrated,
30-40 years.
Exactly. If you pick up Pro Wrestling Illustrated, they didn't just cover WWF. They covered everything. And so it lets you know that there was more wrestling out there. If you wanted to consume the media, there was more wrestling out there. There's plenty of wrestling out there for you to consume.
You could definitely make a case to me that Vince and Vince Sr. made the effort to commoditize the American wrestling market. You can make a case to me that the McMahons destroyed the territories and they destroyed the territory days of wrestling. You can absolutely look me in the eyes, and I would 100% agree with you. But to say that the McMahons or WWE has a capital on wrestling is fucking asinine.
Here's the thing about it. There would be no AEW as it stands today if WWF never exists. Like, understand this, people. Like, understand this. Wrestling prior to WWF was a territory thing. Like Alpha just mentioned. You watched what was from your territory. You watched the guys that were from your territory. You watched the Yeah, and these guys didn't move around a lot because there wasn't a lot of ways to get to a show in Georgia like there is now. You couldn't just hop on a plane. Well, you could hop on a plane, but it's a little bit
you, you,
more
you you had to be
involved.
the AAA motherfucker to be riding a
Exactly.
plane to places. That's why Ric Flair made it his fucking thing because he was the only one fucking doing it.
Exactly. And so because of that, you take a look at these things and understand wrestling would not be what it is today. If WWF doesn't combine the territories and make itself one global force.
I do have a
Now,
question. I do have a question though, real quick.
what's that?
I'm not gonna sit here and act like we're pro wrestling gurus. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
sit
we're
here.
not by any stretch of the
But that
imagination.
that all being said, what is the oldest wrestling promotion that you can recall off the top of your head? Quick answer for me. I'm just gonna sit here and say the oldest singular promotion that I can possibly think of is the WWF. Like I was asked that question recently, and I had to sit there and think like, is the oldest promotion that I could possibly think of the WWF? And
Well,
that does
okay.
kind of give you an insight to something because I'm not going to say wrestling didn't exist before that point because
Yeah,
obviously it was a commodity as a circus attraction as many other things before it was taken as a real genuine sort of a real draw.
right.
And so like the first real promotion that I can think of that really brought it in.
To everywhere. Put it on
I'll
TV.
Yeah,
Well, I can't say that. Okay, because here's the thing about it.
I'm not going to sit
Not
here and act like the NWA doesn't exist either.
right. And see, and here's the thing about it. For me, I'm a tad bit older than you.
Yeah,
As a wrestling fan, I do remember things like, oh my God, one of the first matches I can ever remember like being like, oh my God, about it was the Road Warriors, pre WWF or WWF, the Road Warriors taking on the Rock and Roll Express, okay, in a fucking scaffolding match.
holy
And
shit.
these scaffoldings are set up in like 30 feet above the ground. And of course, they've got all the pads and everything on the ground just in case anybody falls, which of course,
Launch
a
the
couple
fuck
of
out,
people
right?
fell, you know. But I remember that was one of the first wrestling matches of me ever being like fully engaged in everything that was wrestling. The Road Warriors were my favorite tag team, you know. But I'll be honest with you, if WWF never existed, I probably might not have had as much interest. My key interest started with Hulk Hogan, and then from there grew to wanting to consume more of this product, wanting to consume more of this. There's got to be other guys out there. Hogan can't be it, and so I very much enjoyed looking at other territories. So for me, NWA was always the first one that I recognized outside of WWF.
Yeah,
Right,
the
was
National Wrestling
NWA.
first
They're
one.
heavyweight champions. It was the first one that I really acknowledged. Then came along WCW, and it was just over from there for me as a wrestling
Gotcha.
fan. I was
From
going to
Crockett
consume at
Promotions,
least
right?
10 to 15 hours of wrestling every week, whether I liked it or not. I never understood battles. Just like I don't understand this. We've expressed on here before. I don't understand the Wednesday night wars. I never will.
Like the Mr.
I
Incredible, he's at the table. The wrestling is wrestling.
exactly. I'm more of like, how much more wrestling can you give me? Okay, you're giving me 4 hours on Wednesdays. What can you give me on Thursdays too? How can we make this so that there's wrestling every single day of the week? Like that's my ultimate goal. And I want to be able to say, okay, tonight I'm watching Raw. Tuesday night I'm watching blah blah blah. Wednesday night I'm watching
Builds up
AEW and NXT.
content, right?
I want to be able to say this because to me, when wrestling is popular, when wrestling is good, the world's in a good place. To me, yeah, politically, the '90s weren't exactly the best place for the U.S., but as far as wrestling was concerned, the '90s and early 2000s was it.
As good as he gets, right? I feel. I
Was it.
I did want to come on here and approach with something though.
Okay.
So I'm not going to fully transition, and we don't
Hmm.
usually talk about this because with everything we keep up with, I realize I don't really keep up with this as much as normal things. But I guess we're going to somewhat switch to Ring of Honor news for the first time in however long, right?
All right. Yeah, I want to say, yeah, it's been a long while since we've talked Ring of Honor.
I agree. So you'll notice something. The contingency of the Bullet Club, the boys, thinking all the way back to maybe, let's talk 2016, 2017, 2018. The Bullet Club looked in probably its most iconic position with Omega, the Bucks, Cody, Hangman Page, and one Marty Skrull.
Yeah.
And you'll notice when AEW came around, you'll notice a lot of the Bullet Club completely severed their ties with New Japan. Not as a hateful move, but in almost revolt to, I think, Harold Meij, I think is his name, is the American that took over New Japan. They didn't dig that, so they came over and they started AEW. And you'll notice a part of the men who joined AEW, Marty Skrull, is absent. And as I told you a while back, he actually walked into a head booker position in Ring of Honor. And, I'm not going to say that, he used that to his... He didn't politically, get himself to the top. He didn't Vince Russo, Hulk Hogan himself.
Okay.
But recently they actually cut ties, so now he's officially done with them as a booker and a wrestler. This is all coming out of the Speaking Out movement. I know there was multiple allegations pinned on him. I don't know if they are true or not. I haven't seen if they haven't or not, but they have officially cut ties with him both as a wrestler and a head booker now.
Wow.
So I'm curious now as to if he's either going to trail himself back to New Japan or if he's going to find himself in AEW, because I don't, from what I can gather, he's not blackballed, he's not like, he didn't get David Starr. David Starr is fucking blackballed. David Starr isn't gonna work again for a long time, it's looking like. Marty Skrull, there's almost no speak out of like, we don't want this dude here or this or that. So I'm really curious as to what's next for him, because he's a really good worker and he's a great promo. And in the light of all these things, I'm curious as to where he's going to go. So what do you think is most possible? What do you think we're going to see?
I think, and a lot of people are not going to want to hear this. Everybody wants to hear AEW, because they got the whole Impact Wrestling Bullet Club, thing going on right now. I think he needs to go to NXT. I think NXT was able to work with Velveteen Dream well enough when he came across, in his negative light for his that kind of Me Too type thing.
The same thing you said about Matt Riddle, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Matt Riddle. I think WWE would be a place where he could go. You're going to have to give up a little bit of control of your character and who you are, but at least you'll be working. And you're not going to get a great contract because WWE is evidently done. I've read multiple articles that have talked about WWE is done handing out huge contracts to people to try to prevent them from going to AEW. Yeah. Like they're done. They're back down to their base. But check this out. Just a quick side note. I know we're not talking WWE right now. I know we're talking ROH, but a quick side note. The one and only. A lot of people thought his contract was up and he may be showing up in AEW. Well, somebody did a little bit more digging and found something out. Ricochet, right around the time the AEW started, renegotiated his contract and actually signed an extension. So Ricochet's contract does not end until 2024.
Yeah.
So we will be seeing the one and only.
There was reports of him. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, he's gonna go, bro. He's totally leaving for New Japan. He's totally going to AEW." And not even that I'm angry about that, but almost instantly, Ricochet went and tweeted out one of those articles, and a bunch of emojis pointing at it. It was like, "This is not true." Like all caps, like, "This is not true." Like I love Ricochet, and I love to see Ricochet work. The old ultra flippy shit style isn't something that I pride myself on being madly in love with, but Ricochet puts a really entertaining spin on it, and I love his body of work, but I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he has an understanding of that Vince McMahon paycheck.
Yeah.
And now that Casey Catanzaro is there, I'm not sure if you're aware, but they've been dating for a long time now. And
Really?
so, yeah,
She just
Casey
won her match
Catanzaro,
on whatchamacallit, I believe.
yeah, she just won that match on NXT, right? She
Yep. I just watched her do it like 2 seconds ago.
super cool. You know, it's really cool to think about the fact that King Flippy shit is dating one of the American Ninja Warrior winners. So that's pretty cool, I think. But you know, I think a lot of people don't like to say it, but you know, now that she's there, I don't think he's going anywhere.
No, I don't think he's going anywhere. You very rarely ever get a chance to work with your wife, and WWE is very big on that, which is why we see Andrade and Charlotte Flair on the same brand, which is why we see Montez Ford and Bianca Belair. You'll notice that if next year's WWE, yep. If WWE next year's WWE draft sees the Street Profits head back to Raw, you'll conveniently see Bianca Belair get drafted back to Raw as well. It's one of the things that, of all the things that you can hate about WWE, it's one of the things to say, hey, this is a positive.
Yeah, you know, I think most of the time, most of the good shit really comes out of it. Like one of my favorite things of all time, I told you about it before, I think, was when John Moxley, when Dean Ambrose at the time was on Talking Smack, and
Yeah.
obviously who hosts Talking Smack? His fucking wife.
His wife, yeah.
You have Renee Young and Daniel Bryan there, and Dean Ambrose is doing his fucking thing. You know, he's just shooting on all cylinders, and he's just like, you know, I don't care what John Cena has to say. I don't care what Steve Austin has to say. And he points at Daniel Bryan. He's like, I don't care what you have to say. And then he points at Renee. And he's like, sometimes I don't even care what you have to say. And she's like, bro, it's funny because he's just like firing on all cylinders, doing what he does best. He's just like, bro, what the fuck? So like you get cool little moments like that with this stuff. So you know, I'm never opposed to it. Like my favorite line of all time was when he was on Total Divas, and they were like, you know, they're paying me to sit around and drink wine and hang out with my girlfriend. Why wouldn't I do this?
You know, and here's the thing about it. I think that what happened with John Moxley and WWE was not about him not liking Vince or him hating Vince and blah, 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 blah. I think it was just creative differences. I think he wanted to go one way with the Ambrose character. He wanted to gear more towards a Moxley type attitude for the character, and WWE wanted to keep him the crazy guy. And I think that
wacky, loony Dean Ambrose. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that it was just creative differences. And yes, was WWE silly for not allowing Dean Ambrose to take? Okay, I'm going to bring something up here that very few people bring up
Dive in.
about the Attitude Era. People praise the Attitude Era because that was a time in which Vince allowed. What is up with Vince and big guys and dinosaurs? Just stop. Anyway, but Vince allowed the talent, basically kind of like what Tony Khan is doing, to dictate and push a lot of the storylines and decisions with their own ideas. But I think also in the in-between, in that ruthless aggression era, I also think we saw some storylines that show exactly how that can be taken a little bit too far. And really, the happy balance of the Attitude Era comes from when Vince and the talent were on the same page with what they wanted to do. And I think that was a time in which the WWF / or whatever really thrived because there was a collaboration of talent. You can allow it. There's some storylines in AEW that are just kind of clunky. And the reason why they're clunky is because they're being driven by the talent. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to be driven by the talent. I think that a combination of the talent and the right people makes for a beautiful combination that everybody else gets to enjoy.
I agree. I think actually now that we're seeing Daniel Bryan sort of slip into a backstage role, I hear he's slipping into a backstage role and he's helping write a lot of things. Mm-hmm. I think now that we're seeing him go into that, I think we're seeing a lot of better content on SmackDown. Yeah, I think SmackDown is definitely on the up and up now that Daniel Bryan has been putting his word in and it's been making the difference that it has. I agree, you know. For example, look, man, I've said it before a million times. My favorite fucking tag team on this planet right now is FTR.
Hmm.
And I will shout that shit from the rooftops. But I'm not gonna lie when I tell you that Young Bucks versus FTR could have gone a little bit better. Not in terms of in-ring work. That shit is irrefutable. That shit was great. But in terms of building a compelling storyline, I think because it has been purely through the brains of FTR and the Young Bucks, if not like maybe a little too much from their minds, there's a bit of a disconnect in how this was going to go, and I think how this should have gone.
Yeah.
And I think you're right in that aspect. I think if they had maybe a higher, not a higher worker, but like someone who was more
someone who understands how to write a script.
Yeah, someone who has an understanding of how these things are structured,
Yep.
And I'm not going to say that they're inexperienced because they're not.
No.
But maybe maybe a perspective from the outside looking in would have definitely helped them. And I think that's why a lot of things in WWE might work, and swinging in the opposite favor is why it doesn't work sometimes. So I see what you mean completely, though. Yeah, I get that.
Well, here's a key example that I tell people that a lot of people don't know. This Freddie Prinze Jr. Yes. The actor, yes, Fred from the Scooby-Doo movies, the love interest in tons of other movies, was actually a writer for SmackDown for a while.
Yeah.
For a good long while. When SmackDown was hot, he was one of the top writers for SmackDown. Now, do I think that Freddie Prinze Jr. is the perfect guy to write a wrestling storyline? Probably not. But you sit him alongside a Triple H or a Vince McMahon, and you have his Hollywood storytelling, because he's been a director, so on and so forth, brain, and you're adding that to this experience that Triple H and Vince have of telling wrestling stories. And also, the man's a huge wrestling fan. For anybody that's ever listened to him on a podcast, the man is possibly one of the biggest wrestling fans you ever meet. He's probably one of the biggest geeks, too. He's a Star Wars fan. He's fucking... And Freddie, if you want to do this show, brother, anytime. Double KKW, you can catch me on Twitter, wherever you want, man. You can do this show. I would love to hear the stories from you. But Freddie Prinze Jr., I think that's what's missing in WWE. Is they're trying to bring everything back to wrestlers or the writers, and I think you need that mixture. I think that writing room needs to be filled with people who know how to write a story, as well as wrestlers who know how to tell a story physically in ring.
I agree. You know what's a great fucking example of that right now, actually?
What's that?
Wonderful time to bring this up. The current Reigns storyline going on right now. Everything going on with Roman Reigns. You know why that is working? Because, I don't know if you've heard, but they have given Reigns an increasingly amount of control over what he's going to do, over what he wants to do, and what he gets to work with. And I think now that Reigns has the chance to veto this and say no to this, or either find a way to work that into what he wants, I think that's why we're seeing so much magic with this. I think that's why since Reigns returned, I can say confidently, this is probably one of the best angles that I've seen in a long time. And as you know, I've been pretty critical of Reigns over the past few years. I've been pretty damn critical of Reigns. But has it been the worst thing ever? No. But I think it can be said a lot about the fact that the moment that Reigns returns, and then they give him a certain amount of control, and they let him decide who he wants to work with and how he wants to work it, even just a little bit, we immediately start seeing one of the worst and most hated characters in the past decade of wrestling turn into probably one of the biggest badasses. And I'm not going to say that everyone's behind him, but it's way more than it's ever been before.
But
I think there's something to be said about that, that when you give them a little bit of control and you let them work what they want to work with, but you also have someone like Vince, you have the writing team like Bruce Pritchard, giving them something that the sponsors could want and something that the sponsors could find enticing, at that point, it's a win for everybody. And like you're saying, like, swinging in either direction is really fucking dangerous, because then you see just straight up bad content.
Exactly. And I think that you know what? Let's go on ahead. Let's take our break real quick. We'll come back from this in a few minutes, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on in WWE and why I like the direction that it's going.
Yeah.
Give me just a second. I'm going.
You're listening to the Cheap Pop Podcast right here on the 4Aces Presents Radio Network. Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and wherever you may find your favorite podcasts.
Interruption in progress. Now hijacking into ANS 2.0 immersion rig. Now simulating the amazing nerd show. Featuring comics.
And Batman's like, you're safe here and everything, but the Joker all of a sudden pulls out a gun and shoots himself.
Movies.
People fight with lightsabers. What the hell do you want? I mean, in every one of these movies, there's a lightsaber battle.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna rewatch it a million times.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, give me something more.
Wrestling.
That would be awesome. Oh my god, just a monster. Fans would be like, holy, what the hell's going on? What happened to Jericho?
Horror.
It starts off like any other like home invasion type of story, and then it just goes crazy.
And more.
Hey, this is Christian.
Hey, this is Damon.
And we are the Amazing Nerd Show.
Make sure to download us on all your favorite podcast platforms.
So, what's up? Steve Fingerstyles here, the host of the podcast spelled DA, of course. Tune in each and every week to hear what pisses me off, what angers me, what I make fun of, and of course, my crazy rants. I also have incompetent co-hosts, cool guests, and a silent producer that sucks. So what more do you need from a podcast? You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, and the Pod Bros Network. Peace.
Hey guys, this is Venice, and I've got a message from a friend of mine about my favorite podcast.
It's your boy, Flavor Flav in full effect. Check this out, everybody. I want y'all to go check out TJ.
What's good, everybody? TJ Johnson here for Voice from the Underground. I am the most handsome.
Big Has.
And I'm smoking my cigar, of course.
You know what I'm saying? The Dutch.
You pick me up in an Uber and a PT Cruiser, I'm calling Lyft.
Cause they be fighting the power, talking about social issues, politics, you know what I'm saying?
And we're not even that good.
Right, we're terrible. Terrible. Tangents all over the place.
And not only that, but they be keeping it fun with the sports, music, comics, and movies too.
Am I allowed to talk?
I think, no, not right now.
Shut up, colonizer!
You know what I'm saying? He on Twitter at VFU Podcast. So you can find them. So check 1, 2. This is Flavor Flav. Yeah, boy.
Okay, what Flav was trying to say is, check out Voice from the Underground on your favorite podcast network.
Voice from the Underground.
Hey, y'all. Hope you enjoyed that commercial there. All right, so I want to first plug, got to do the self plug, K-Double's main event, blogspot.com, that you can find my thoughts on a lot of things wrestling. I did an article recently about AEW signing Sting and Undertaker's retirement. But I want to mention something about the most recent article I wrote, which was Randy Orton being basically the best heel of 2020. And what was the year of the heels? Like, you had some good ones. MJF would definitely be in that top 5. He played a decent heel. I wouldn't say the best heel in the business at any point, but definitely he was a good heel.
AEW, I could say Jericho was a very good heel this year.
Yeah,
Jericho was a good heel for 2020 in the pandemic era of wrestling,
But to me, above all else, and maybe it's just because I'm an old school wrestling fan, Randy Orton stood above them all. From his work to start the year against Edge, redeveloping the legend killer persona. He didn't just jump back into it. He didn't just come out one Monday Night Raw and go, I'm now the legend killer. No.
This is Legend Killer 2.0, more like.
Exactly. And he slowly grew the character from his feud with Edge to punting Christian, to punting Ric Flair, to punting Big Show, leading into Matt Hardy too, to eventually ending up moving forward and move into the WWE title picture and even holding the title for a couple of weeks in his feud against Drew McIntyre. And then now closing out the year with this feud with The Fiend. Like, Holy man. And this is some of his best heel work I've seen him do in his career. Like this feud with The Fiend.
I really got to come up through Randy Orton's career. Growing up, I really got to see the rise of people like him and Batista and Cena, and as a result, I like to think that I was around for the best version of Randy Orton's career. The original Legend Killer gimmick was a fucking fire starter. No
it
joke,
was.
No pun intended. To the most recent events for him now, but it was an amazing fucking character, and like some of my most memorable moments in wrestling growing up were watching him just like RKO every woman that he ever came near. Watching him, watching him punt the head off of Sergeant Slaughter and all these legends and shit. And I told people for a lot of time that Randy Orton just slowly started to go really stale for me. He started to grow really slow for me, and I love Randy as a worker, and I've always respected what he's done for the business, but there's been a lot of times for me growing up where I've just watched him phone it in, and it's like, man, I know you can do better than that.
Yeah.
And especially, growing up through 2008, 2009, 2007, seeing him and Cena fight each other millions and millions and millions of fucking times, seeing the same format, I feel like I had seen everything out of Randy Orton possible. And by the time, 2012, 2013 came around, I respected him, but I was never really excited to see more Randy Orton content.
Yeah. But now that's changed.
Yeah, no, from the beginning of 2020 onward, Randy Orton has proven that like he can really work his fucking ass off when he tries. When he applies himself and he puts the work in to be that fucking heel again, that deplorable, slimy bastard of a heel that he does so well. Like, it's clear fucking magic happens, and there's no better face than a returning Edge or a valiant Drew McIntyre. And we've talked about the format of a title win together lots of times. And I don't hate the fact that Randy Orton won it and then Drew got it back, because it made Randy look badass as a heel. Like, he could really do it, but it also made Drew look like an absolute fucking hero.
Monster champion.
And that's the goal of a good heel, right? At the end of the day, the heel is there to get their comeuppance. They're there. That's the golden rule in wrestling. If they don't get the comeuppance, then what's it all even for?
Exactly.
And Randy has proven that you can be a great heel and then get your comeuppance and then still be a great fucking heel moving forward. I didn't think that you were going to be able to look me in the eyes and say that The Fiend being face and Randy Orton being heel was going to work for 2 months on end now. I'd call you a fucking liar, but it's worked amazing. Mostly not because The Fiend is a compelling face, but because it's so fucking easy to hate heel Randy Orton.
And it's once again, it's everything. It's a tripod. To be a good heel, it's a tripod. It's the in-ring work. It's the drawing the pure hate out of the fan. Not just the generated heat, but the pure heat, to where they're like, I don't even want to buy your merchandise, but I'm going to. Yeah, exactly. And then it's the promo work. And I think that's where Orton has shined throughout this entire year, is in the promo work. Of course, we know he's a third generation superstar. Of course, we know we're going to get good in-ring work from Randy Orton.
But Randy Orton, when he tries, can wrestle in his fucking sleep. He literally
exactly.
Right.
And so you're going to get that. The psychological aspect of it is what's been coming out in his promo work. This most recent promo to open Raw, of him in the mask, and man, it was amazing. And I made a comment. Okay, I watched a top 10 fireballs thing that was on WWE's Facebook page, right? And I pointed out to my fiance that if you watch the thing as it goes, right, after every fireball, the refs would come out. Oh my God, are you okay? You okay? And that was kind of what sold it, that they really got hit, or what I'm saying, whatever.
Fucking blazed, right?
It was funny though, because I thought the exact opposite about the Randy Orton thing. I think the fact that they let him flail about in the ring by himself made it seem more, and then you combine that with this promo, and it made it just seem that much more like Randy's pissed.
Yeah.
Like, you got this thing out here looking like a luchador. Like, he is upset. Okay?
You seen Pineapple Express, bro?
Yes, I am.
All I can think of is, I look like fucking Hamburger.
Oh, man. Oh, Craig Robinson, you are a national. Look, I just got done watching This Is the End over the past couple of days when I was sick.
Straight up fucking lovable, man.
And you know what, man? I'm not a huge Backstreet Boys fan, but the close to that show, or close to that movie, is one of the most amazing ever. But anyway, back to wrestling. So it's Orton's. It's just the way the words slither out of his mouth. I love, and really, I'll be honest with you. The first time with Alexa Bliss, when she pours the gasoline on herself and says, "Set me on fire," and then they go to the front visual camera with Randy, and he's sitting there holding the thing. I was like, really? That's it? Light that bitch on fire.
You immolated the motherfucker. We watched him die. You can take the bitch too.
She asking for it, man. She told you to. When you get to court, you can literally show the video. She told me to.
Sanctioned, I swear.
Nah, I don't want to see nothing happen to beautiful Miss Alexa Bliss. Buddy Murphy's fiance there.
They've been broken up for a minute. What do you mean?
Huh?
They've been broken up for a minute.
Really?
Yeah, they've been broken
She's
up.
single again?
Yeah.
Well, her crazy ass. She. Oh, man. Nah, I got to say, I was highly, highly, highly impressed with how they're allowing her to carry the storyline while Bray takes some time off. Her match with Asuka, I'm hoping, is setting up a future match for the Raw Women's Championship, because that was an amazing match. And I love the whole, like, zoom in on her and all of a sudden she's in a different costume and like
and all,
yeah, like, it was pretty cool, and her no sells were pretty damn awesome. Yeah. Like Alexa, you got me, girl.
I've told it to you before. I've only said it like once probably, but I really dig the idea with the Fiend, that the Fiend is this this almost eldritch being that you know the whole theme with Lovecraftian stories. Humans have this thing where they want to find out everything they can. And then one day they find out something they're not supposed to. They find out that forbidden God knowledge, and whoop, there goes your sanity.
Yep.
Sanity shattered. Good luck with that, homie. And the idea with the Fiend is that similar idea of like whatever comes into contact with this thing is just mentally not okay after the fact. Like we saw Braun Strowman. Remember what happened to Braun Strowman after the Fiend? Cut his hair, new costume. Pretty much like he's got the same theme music and he does the same moves, but in presentation he's a lot different in character. There's a whole new mentality behind the Braun Strowman character, and that all happened because of the Fiend. And
Where
so now
is Braun Strowman?
Exactly. So and so now you have Bliss, who has come into much more closer contact with the Fiend, and as a result is channeling the Fiend to the nth fucking degree now. She is not the avatar of the Fiend like Bray was, but she is just mentally fucking shattered. And so I'm really into this, and I'm really liking that
the psychological aspect.
Yeah, the psychological aspect of it. But I really like that they are abusing the format that they have here with no crowd. The format of being able to have her switch costumes, being able to switch things around like that. Being able to have Randy's pyro rain down on a crowd that isn't there. Things like that, there's a lot of bad shit in this, but the silver lining is that, damn, you can make shit look pretty fucking good, man.
I gotta give you credit too, and there is a new camera being used by SmackDown for entrances, exits, stuff like that really puts the wrestler or whatever the center target is in the foreground and kind of blurs everything in the background to give it a little bit more of a depth. I kind of like it. Watching Roman Reigns walk down to the ring, it looked like I was watching WWE 2K20. Watching him walk down the ring with Paul Heyman and Jay behind him. But it's one of those things that that WWE is doing to try to give it a little bit better of a presentation, being that they can't give you the crowd. They can't give you the true crowd noise right now, so on and so forth, but they can evidently. By the way, on a side note, I've heard that WrestleMania will have a small crowd this year.
I hear that too. Yeah, I heard lots of reports that they wanted to have crowd for the Rumble. They really wanted to have crowd for the Rumble, but that's not going to be happening. And I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain. But now they're at least talking for the idea that if they can't have a crowd for the Rumble, then they want to have some form of capacity crowd for Mania. And the thing is, I'm not even the dude that's like, let's just get us out of this fucking pandemic. Just open everything. No. I'm not going to be that dude. And I'm not that dude. But I will say that if NXT can have a small-scale crowd and a very limited and very controlled, tested crowd, and if AEW can have a limited and controlled, tested crowd, then I think WWE can have the capacity to do it.
Yeah. And I think for something as big as WrestleMania and they're in Raymond James Stadium, yeah, you can. Here's the thing with it. Like, I was just telling my fiance this earlier today when watching NXT. I actually prefer the NXT setup to the Thunderdome. I prefer the small crowd.
The flat wall setup.
The flat wall as opposed to the stacked screens.
Yeah,
the flat wall. I like that a lot better. I don't know why. But the stacked screens kind of bother me because I feel like there's people that are being left off and stuff.
Yeah, it feels like I'm not viewing something, right?
Right.
With the stacked screen, it feels like you get just big pain of crowd. I really like that.
Exactly. And then you also have the true crowd noise by the limited amount of actual people that are there. And so, like, I don't know, like, maybe WWE just doesn't want to do that on a larger scale, but I think that it could work for a WrestleMania type setup. Not necessarily as small as it is. Of course, now you're going to have to take the Capitol Wrestling Center and expand it by like 100-fold, with Raymond James Stadium. But you are working with something like Raymond James Stadium. You can still do social distancing and have a crowd on the football field, and then have screens covered screens with big things, just in case it's raining. Covered screens all around in the actual stands, of Raymond James Stadium. So it could possibly work to where they can have like 5,000 or 10,000 people actually at WrestleMania and still actually be able to socially distance and do it, because you're working with a 100-yard football field in a wrestling ring that's what, like 8 feet by like 5 feet or 10 feet,
10 by 10.
Yeah, 10 by
right.
10.
I was asked by someone, like, if they're going to get a stadium like they always do, how will they fit all the people? And it's like, what do you mean? With a stadium, you have more capacity to successfully social distance without a problem.
Which is
why
because
it's bigger, but because of the way seating is set up. Because the way seating is set up in the corners and on the floor, like you said, you have a lot more capacity to safely social distance that way than you would in a more enclosed stadium, I think. Or any form of event.
Well, understand, folks, this theory is already being tested with most of your major sports. Most of your major sports, NBA, NHL, etc., are having minimal crowds come to these events, like 5, maybe 10,000 inside of a 20,000 person stadium, because they have actual seating that is like, okay, your seats A, B, and C of row 13, but there's not anybody else on row 13 until like seats Z, F, and G, or Z, F, and whatever. So people got to understand that they're already testing these theories. So all WWE has to do is implement the same things that they're implementing at sporting arenas, because that's where WWE plays the most. Well, and once they have their regulations down and they have their protocols in place, then we'll start seeing WWE traveling again. Mark my words. I think by the end of 2021, if things continue to go the way that they're going, we're going to see WWE traveling again by the end of 2021. Because you can safely provide the environment inside of a stadium that can fit 15, 20,000 people. You can still do about 5 or 10,000 at the gate and still safely social distance.
Absolutely. I think by the end of 2021, I think we're definitely on track at very least to see live shows and people back on the road, running house shows, running live shows, things like that. I don't think we're going to see any large scale cross the sea shows for a minute, which is completely fine.
Yeah,
but I think we're going to see on the road shows within the year.
And mark my
Especially
words.
especially with the fact that WWE has made more money in 2020 than ever before.
Yeah.
I think with that coinciding with the fact that I've read a lot of reports that they are very focused on getting back on the road again because, merch sales,
exactly.
House show sales, man. They want to get back on the road again. And do I blame them? No, but I think they're going to focus on getting that fucking ASAP.
And understand, WWE is a money-making machine, and especially now that they're a publicly traded company, they have to make money for the people who have bought stocks. So at the end of the day, WWE will be the first to find a way to continue to be back out on the road again and doing it safely.
Shareholders and sponsors, baby.
And just to mark people's words, yeah, I'm not one of those let's hurry up and rush and open the economy. I'm one of those type of people that says, okay, if you do want to rush and open the economy in the middle of a pandemic, then remove all protections that protect you from being liable should somebody contract the disease in your establishment. If you want to remove all protections for that, I'm all for you doing whatever you want to do and opening up. Because the first time somebody contracts it and they can prove that they contracted it there,
good luck. You're fucked.
Good luck. You're fucked. But anyway, but Vince is protected by all kinds of things, being the head of a company as large as WWE. But not everybody is protected, which is why we don't see a lot of indie shows nowadays, because nobody wants to be responsible for being a hot spot for COVID. But we still get wrestling shows, which is great. I think that here's a shout out to the independent wrestling community. I'll say this: I think the independent wrestling community would be served well to take advantage of platforms like YouTube and Facebook Watch, etc., to still get your product out there. Have small crowds, have other wrestlers as crowds, but put on shows, because I think that now more than ever people need independent wrestling, and they need independent wrestling shows. And I think you can keep the crowd small enough and the gathering small enough and record in places that maybe aren't necessarily right in your area, outside of your area, and just gather a bunch of your guys and put on a show, because the world needs independent wrestling. WWE is great and all, AEW is great, but the world needs indie wrestling to really thrive as far as popularity.
Small time indie shit is not to be taken lightly. I know it's a very important pillar of the wrestling community, I believe. And I think COVID may have taken a massive gut punch and did a lot of damage to wrestling community as a whole, but I think indie wrestling has taken the biggest jab, because with places like AEW, WWE, New Japan, they're still running, even on very isolated environments. I can't even count on 3 fucking hands how many local promotions just in my area alone I haven't heard from for the last fucking year and a half because of it. For them, it's just simply not an option. So I agree, keep indie wrestling alive as any way you fucking can, on online presence is key, baby.
Yep. All right, so now back to the big league, so to speak, with WWE. Oh, and just to update you for next week's show, I am watching season 2 of Titans right now. Shit started out hella good. So, but anyway, back to the Roman Reigns. I think that I 100% agree with you. This is some of his best work, because he is thoroughly involved in just about everything that's going on with him on screen. And I really would love to see how this would have turned out had Jey Uso or Jimmy not gotten hurt.
Yeah, okay. If Jimmy wasn't injured, imagine the kind of fucking storytelling devices that could have been used here, right?
Oh, bro, I can guarantee you right now. I'm sorry to say this. No offense to the Dirty Dogs. Congrats to them, by the way. No offense to the Dirty Dogs, but I personally think that if Jimmy and Jay were healthy, right now the family would hold all the SmackDown gold.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I wouldn't be opposed to it at all. Oh, well, all except for what? The IC title?
IC title, right?
Yeah.
Which Roman has already won before, actually. If you remember, he did hold it for a really small amount of time.
Yep. But whoa, you all right, man? Oh, there you go. But yeah, like Roman just, man, the to me, okay, here's what gets me and what I love about Roman Reigns as a heel. It's that deep voice.
Yep.
And that monotone voice. Like
it's not his voice in its pitch. It's the way he delivers shit. It's like he doesn't give a fuck about anything around him other than being better.
And just so Vince McMahon and WWE knows, I'm all about adding Apollo Crews to that stable. I'm all about adding Apollo Crews.
He fucking needs it. Please give the man some shine.
Exactly. But yeah, man, like I was just watching SmackDown last week, and I was just like, he's just sitting back in that chair, and he, is your tribal chief, and I'm just like, ooh, tell him, Roman, tell him, like it's. I want people to watch him and understand that this is what heels were back in the Hogan days. This is what the heels were like pre Attitude Era, pre Stone Cold Steve Austin and his badass heel work that he did, and all of that, and the heels being loud and boisterous. And that's also what I like about Roman Reigns, is that as a heel, he's the exact opposite of his cousin.
Yeah.
He's not loud. He's not boisterous. He's not in your face, but he is. Like he's just like, I know who I am.
It's hard to really pin it up because you're right. Like it's this mix of the fact, like, there is this calm baritone, I don't really care about whatever is going on around me. This is my belt. I'm the king. Fuck what you say sort of gimmick. But then there's these breaks where he immediately snaps into this, like, as you were saying, this angry, like, I'm just gonna fucking rip you in half sort of 80s guttural heel. And I really dig that, because they make a point to that he almost doesn't want to resort to being that. You've seen that every time he switches into this violent, this angry state. He always
started with the feud with Jay.
You can hear him say it in his voice. Like he regrets it. He doesn't want to do that, but he knows that he can. And I like that, because then you have this dichotomy of that against Jimmy and Jay, who made a career out of being these smooth, slick badasses these last few years. The walk down to the ring with the hats.
Down since day one.
They're not moving with the feet, but you swear they're feeling it, sort of. And then you have The Rock, who is like this wrestling explosion. And so, I'm not going to say The Rock was never calm, but there was never this sort of air of, I can beat your ass, but I'm still calmer than you, that Roman has.
Exactly. And I think that's the hugest thing for it when it comes to Roman Reigns, is that it's MJF's character, the I'm better than you and I know it, but done the right way. Like, no offense to MJF, but it's done the right way, because he doesn't need to say I'm better than you and I know it. Why? Yeah. Because just him standing there looking at you already says it. Just the way he looks you up and down, just like,
that conveys everything you need to know about how he feels about your value versus his.
Exactly.
And now, I know what you mean.
Is that everybody always talks about predictability being an issue when it comes to WWE. He did not just DDT that nigga off the top of a referee. I'll be damned. But Roman, like with the Adam Pearce storyline, like, sometimes everybody complains about predictability with WWE, but sometimes predictability can be a good thing. Like, for me this week watching SmackDown, I knew from the moment that Paul Heyman challenged Adam Pearce that the card was going to be subject to change. And I kind of, it was very predictable from day one, but it was what exactly I wanted to see. It was the classic heel move. Okay, you're going to play with me, I'm going to play with you in the exact same way. Except when I play with you, it's going to hurt a lot more. And it was and it was predictable that, like, I looked at my fiance, like, as soon as he came out, he starts beating down on Adam Pearce. I was like, give it about 3 minutes.
Coming out.
Kevin Owens is coming out. I do like the idea of those two in a last man standing match as kind of a blow off match for this feud. I hope to God that after Royal Rumble, if Kevin Owens loses, it's just done. Like, no offense to KO, but you had your opportunities. It's time for somebody else to get a shot. We don't need KO versus Roman Reigns all the way to WrestleMania.
You know what is cool though?
What's that?
Remember, Owens and Reigns have feuded before.
Yeah.
And it was a great feud. And you know what's really cool about it? It ended at the 2017 Royal Rumble. If you don't remember, their final match of that original feud, it ended at the 2017 Royal Rumble. After that was the shark cage match. Where in the middle of the match, Chris Jericho leans down and he drops a brass knuckle down to Owens.
Yeah.
And Owens, odd hand of using every other fucking person's moves, comes in and with the brass knuckle, Superman punches Roman Reigns with the knuckle. And Roman Reigns comes back and he's about to win, and that's when Braun comes in and fucks up Reigns' chance, and Owens wins and takes it home, and that was actually the beginning of Braun versus Reigns. For the next 2 fucking years. But that I remember their last feud ended at the 2017 Royal Rumble, and now it's going to end again at the 2021 Royal Rumble. So
damn. All right, so yeah, I didn't even think about that. Holy shit! Gotta think.
Yeah.
Well, also here. Okay, so I'm gonna call it rumor time.
Rumor time.
So I heard a rumor that they might actually be setting up for Lesnar versus KO at WrestleMania 37.
Oh, please. Oh, fucking please.
The reason why they're saying this is there's talk that Lesnar may come back and interfere in the match between KO and Reigns, costing KO the Universal Championship.
I think that might be one of the few times I'm okay with Brock ruining the shit. You know, that would be even funnier, because then in that case, that would mean that the 2017 Rumble feud ended with fucking Braun starting a feud with Reigns. And that would mean that their feud in 2021 ended with Brock and fucking Kevin Owens starting. Oh,
now here's
perfect. It all comes full circle.
Now here's what would kill me though. Is it's just like, what if Brock Lesnar becomes a member of the family?
Oh, fuck. Did not even consider that. You know,
like
Reigns and fucking Brock just always at each other's things. You know, it never occurred to me that that's a possibility now that Heyman is there, huh?
It would be hilarious. Like, I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, but
think about it though. Think about it.
Brock Lesnar, a member of the family? Like, come on, man. Give it to me. Just give it to me. I can see,
like I imagine it like without the Jimmy John's logo. It's like a RR or some shit, you know. Jimmy John's
logo.
You know, fucking Brock with the Jimmy John's logo on his shorts and shit, man.
Oh, man. All I know is this. All I know is Brock will be one badass. If you put Brock and Roman together as a tag team, they will be one badass tag team to be fucked with.
Everyone knows it's 2K, man. You can't put two people in a team with 90 overall.
Speaking of 2K, man, I'm playing 2K20, and at this moment, I am the WWE champion. I am competing for the NXT championship. I am also NXT tag team champions with Damian Priest.
Nice.
My daughter is the Raw Women's Champion and is competing for the NXT Women's Championship.
That's so fucking nice. Did you get to catch Priest versus Cross on NXT at the beginning of the month?
No, I did not. Not.
Okay, I suggest you go back and watch that singular match if you can. New Year's Eve was a really good show, by the way. At the beginning of the month, really good show. I suggest going back and watching it. But Cross versus Priest, I do want to talk about that a little bit.
Let's talk about it.
So, I've watched a lot of Cross's work, all the way back to when he was Killer Cross. I've been watching the dude for a little while now. I'm not his biggest fan, but I respect his body of work, and I think he's a really good worker when he's paired in the right way. You know, like I said, I'm still fucking furious. It's been over a year now, and it is official that Damian Priest got more offense in than fucking Ciampa did in his match. Ciampa was squashed, but Priest managed to get more offense. And you know, I'm a little I'm a little frustrated with that. So I'm really hoping this is going to pay off. Otherwise, this is just going to be one of the biggest, most disappointing things in all of wrestling history that I didn't get to see Ciampa versus Cross. But Priest versus Cross was really cool. You know, two big ass fucking dudes. It's not exactly a Haas fight because they're both pretty fast. They're both pretty lean dudes. But this is a pretty solid, pretty good slug off.
Well, Damian Priest, to me, I think there needs to be some tweaks to his character before he makes the main roster debut. I like him, but there definitely needs to be some tweaks to his character. They need to decide if he's going to be the dark, like Damian Priest, or if he's going to be like the dude from New York, Damian Priest. You know, like.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's a weird thing they have going on right now where he's like, "I'm Damian Priest, the vampire, live forever." You know.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. and then they have that mixed in with the fact that like after the match he's gonna go chill with some bitches and hoes in the hot tub.
Exactly.
Pop some wine with his pants still on. It's like, what are you doing, man? Yeah.
Like you half expect to see Blade walk in the room. But anyway, on the real talk though, like it's something that I think they need to decide and stick with his character because the guy's a great worker.
Oh yeah.
He can go in ring.
You've been alongside me. You remember when he was Punishment Martinez? You know, we've been watching his ass for a minute now, right?
And I can't. And I think that there's big things for him moving forward. But at the end of the day, I can tell you this: Timothy Thatcher needs to be on the main roster as soon as possible.
Oh my!
The world needs to get. This wrestling world in 2021 needs Daniel Bryan versus Timothy Thatcher. Period. It doesn't need to be for a belt. If you want to throw a belt in there, sure, let's give me a belt. But if any, just
give me the match, damn it.
Just give me the damn match. The world needs. Yeah.
No, I'm like, imagine, bro. That leaves the capacity to see Thatcher versus Cesaro.
Oh,
think of the fucking magic. Like, God, Thatcher, I don't care what anybody says, bro. Thatcher is one of the most underrated motherfuckers that has walked in and out of the wrestling business over the past 15 fucking years. The longest reigning Evolve champion of all fucking time, bro. He walked out of that shit with back pain from carrying Evolve on his fucking back.
Hell yeah.
Thatcher deserves so much respect that he does not get. And I'm not just saying this because he grew up 5 miles away from me.
Yes, he is from Sacramento.
Yes, he's got that deep, soulless Sacramento stare.
I just want to see this man work. Like, I'll say it like this: 2 weeks ago, we got Daniel Bryan versus Cesaro, and last week we got Cesaro versus Dolph Ziggler. And if you gonna look at either one of those matches and say everything in WWE sucks, you just don't know wrestling. I hate to throw that around because I hate it when people say that, but it's just the dead truth. And to think about Thatcher versus any one of those three guys in a match, man.
Like Thatcher, even if you want to sit here and tell me that Thatcher doesn't really fit, I don't know about you, but I can see Thatcher in a very good, very prominent mid-card position. I don't see Thatcher with the main event position. I want to, but I don't.
Not unless his character catches fire.
Yeah, unless they give him some real mainstream appeal. I don't think we're going to see that. But I think I can really see Thatcher holding down the mid-card like Mr. Perfect style, Razor Ramon style, for a real long time and making it look real fucking good.
Oh, yeah, multi-time U.S. champion, a multi-time Intercontinental champion. Oh, yeah. Timothy Thatcher is a fucking beast in ring and can give you some of the best. Sami Zayn versus Timothy Thatcher. Like, come on.
Oh, my God. Owens versus Thatcher. Holy shit.
Like
even Rollins versus Thatcher.
But WWE, before either one of them retire, bro, you honestly 100% need to give us Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. Just once. You can give and you can even keep MVP as his manager, because MVP outside the ring for Bobby Lashley and Paul Heyman outside the ring for Brock Lesnar. Let's do it. Let's do it.
It's. Even if you want to give me only like a Royal Rumble level interaction, where they just face off and they fucking shoulder block each other, that alone is enough to make my wrestling boner fucking hit the ceiling. We have literally talked about like almost nothing else when it comes to Lashley when it comes to this, because the idea of seeing Lashley versus Lesnar in a AAA style match still makes me froth out the fucking mouth.
Hopefully they'll give it to us by the time we get to the WrestleMania in Dallas in 2 years.
While we're on the subject, I do want to say, last month, I don't know if you got to see Ciampa versus Thatcher. If you haven't, go back and watch that, because it's some nasty, brutal fucking shit, bro. It is.
I just watched Ciampa versus Thatcher in the pit.
Oh,
that match was. I like that pit idea. That pit idea needs to come to the main roster with Timothy Thatcher.
I don't know if you saw Thatcher's match with Riddle when he did the cage. It was so good. But Ciampa versus Thatcher, I don't know if you watched it last month.
No,
it wasn't as good as the cage match. Okay. But in the middle of the match, Ciampa busts open Thatcher's ear hard way.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I did see that one.
Yeah, like that moment when he's just kicking at the dude's fucking ear, and Thatcher's still taking this shit and profusely bleeding out of the side of the fucking head, bro. That was like, I don't cringe a lot when watching wrestling. I'm a hardcore death match fucking connoisseur. You know this, you know. I don't cringe a lot when watching wrestling, but watching Thatcher's bloody ear get flattened like a fucking waffle with some other level of like, ooh.
Yeah, it kills me. It like I said, it reminds me, when I watched Thatcher Daniel Bryan, it reminded me of the 2 of the 3 Falls match between Cesaro and Sami Zayn back in NXT. Like, it reminded me of that level of just like, wow, this is what wrestling is, you know, and you don't get a lot of those moments. Not even in AEW. Like, people think you would get more of those in AEW. Not even in AEW do you get a lot of this.
Some real mat wrestling, knuckle to knuckle.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, I like what WWE is doing. Let's get to some predictions about the Royal Rumble here.
Okay. What you got?
So, who you got for the men's Royal Rumble? Let's start there.
Okay. So, this is interesting because, as you know, as you've known me over the years now, you know that I walk into the Rumble with a pretty good prediction. I usually walk in with 3 or 4 people. I at least have a handful of people that I'm like, okay, here's a handful. Here's what we're walking in and out of. Here are the chances. This year, I really haven't gotten a lot of reports as much as I usually do. I usually base it off reports and you know, what I see who looks strong going into the Rumble. And oddly enough, Cesaro is looking really strong going into the Rumble. And so is Shinsuke. And so, you know, I have them in consideration, but half of Cesaro is just hoping.
Sure.
You know,
I think he'll be in the final 6. Yeah, like, I think he's up there.
Yeah, being realistic for me, if I could pick top 3, for me, that's going to be Shinsuke, Cesaro, or Reigns. And you could say, like, you know, how the fuck is Reigns going to walk into this with a champion, you know? Out of everyone, I think we have a good chance of seeing a championship change hands before we see this going into it. And I don't think Reigns is going to lose it. I'm not confident in that. But I think there's a lot of things that we can see going into this that none of us are going to be able to fucking guess.
Right.
And I think Cesaro and Shinsuke are looking real strong going into it. But I think something big with Reigns is going to happen at the Rumble. I think maybe he might show up as an entrant or in and out of that. But, you know, we also got to keep in mind that, you know, they can't be bringing in as much outside people for the Rumble this year, you know?
Yeah.
I don't anticipate a lot of cameos. I don't anticipate a lot of people coming in by surprise that aren't already a part of the roster.
Right.
And that's what I'm thinking.
Well, okay. I'm going to say this. My heart's favorite, the guy I want to see win it, like you said with Cesaro, is Daniel Bryan. He's never won a Rumble before. This may be his last hurrah. Would love to see Daniel Bryan win it. But if I had... Exactly. Shinsuke Nakamura has actually won a Royal Rumble before. So, like, I don't know if he's going to be that 2-time winner type guy. I think he'll definitely get his title shots in the future, but I don't know if he'll be a multi-time winner type guy. And I would love to see Cesaro. I agree with you about Reigns. Like, I definitely don't think Reigns is dropping the title. I just told you, I honestly believe that the whole thing, that I think that Lesnar's may be coming back and may be interfering in that matchup, but in favor of Reigns. But I could. Here's a dark horse for me, and no pun intended on this. Keith Lee.
Knew you were gonna say that. Knew it.
It's not. Like, you see the push that Keith's been given, and it would be a perfect build to him winning a title. You know, because remember, they don't always have to go for the whatchamacallit. He'd go for the WWE title. You know, he'd go for the Universal title.
That is interesting because if you remember, there were a lot of reports that they wanted Keith Lee to main event Mania. They wanted him to main event not against Universal but against the WWE, like 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So that could still be the plan, you know.
Exactly. So all right. So that's my favorite, my dark horse, and who I want to win.
Okay.
I gotta go back to the ER when you're done.
All right, so next up we have the Women's Royal Rumble. Let's see. All right, so
I think we have a really good chance of seeing someone from NXT walk into this and potentially take it home, if I'm being honest.
Yeah? You think that you think there could be an Ember Moon?
I think there could be an Ember Moon easily. Hopes and dreams is its Ember Moon, right? Man,
I wish.
Oh man, Kairi Sane return.
Yes.
Man.
I could see a Charlotte Flair winning it, but she just won it last year, so I don't think it's going to be Charlotte. I'm thinking like you. I think it's going to be somebody that we don't necessarily see coming. Somebody like a Natalya, who's never won one before.
Honestly, I think Natalya would have a really good chance of this. She's been built pretty strongly over the past year of wrestling, actually. Now that I think about it, right?
Yep. And or maybe a Nia Jax. Somebody we haven't seen win this before.
Honestly, if I could give you one person, you know, there's a lot of people that could really walk into this solid. Nia Jax, I believe that. I could believe that. But I think with momentum and trajectory that we've been seeing, if I had to put my money on anyone, it would be Bianca Belair.
Fair enough.
And I'm not even the biggest, most massive fan. But
you're not a fan of the EST?
No. I'm a big fan of her, actually. I think she's a very solid worker, especially among the women's division, bro. She's a very solid worker. I need some more character from her, though. I need some more mic work. I need some more spiel. I need something to stick with me with it when it comes to her. But in terms of in-ring action, she's fucking impeccable. Nothing bad to say about her as an athlete.
Amazing.
But I think in terms of how they've been building her, I think she has a really solid, clean chance of walking into this and just straight up fucking winning.
I can see that. I can straight up see that. So here's the thing. All right. There are only 4 listed matches for the Royal Rumble. We've discussed 2 of them.
Oh, fuck.
The other 2. Now, folks, the only reason why we're doing predictions right now is because we won't be back on again until after the Royal Rumble when we review the Royal Rumble. So we're giving our predictions now for the 4 matches that are there. They're going to be there. We both said that we both think Reigns is retaining.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of how.
Reigns isn't dropping. It's a matter of how.
I think that Reigns will definitely be holding on to that title until WrestleMania at the latest.
Oh, at very fucking least until Mania at the earliest, I think. Until the earliest. I don't think he's dropping that shit till Mania, right?
So Reigns over Owens. We've already said that. Next up is Goldberg and Drew McIntyre. I like to call him Goldberg, but they like to call him Goldberg.
I think they pulled it because Drew's got COVID, isn't it?
No, they didn't pull the match because both of them are supposed to be showing up on Monday Night Raw this week.
Okay, I thought they pulled it. Okay, well, either way, then.
Well, let me give somebody real quick as a person, you know, and I'm not proud of this, but as a person who's just recently recovered from it. I've been told by multiple doctors that basically after 14 days, that's why quarantining for 14 days is so important. After 14 days, even if you're still showing symptoms, you're no longer contagious. So, and Drew never showed any symptoms. He was never sick. He just happened to test positive. So he was asymptomatic. Yeah. So as long as he quarantines for 14 days, he should be fine. I did worry about the fact that him and Goldberg had that contact immediately before.
Right there, right.
Before he tested positive. But evidently it didn't hurt Goldberg because the match is still on, at least according to WWE.
Okay. I think, I hate to be the dude to bring it up. I hate to even talk about it. But after we saw the Goldberg, fucking turn the Fiend in half with a slow suplex last year, I think there's a really good chance. I think we could really
Oh, you're killing me.
Yeah, I think you could really walk out of this with that belt. I think because of that one fact, everyone else, including me, is looking at this like, we could really see Goldberg walk out of this with a belt.
Right. But do you actually think that Goldberg's going to win the belt?
Fuck no.
No.
I think their faith in Drew as a very good champion has shown through in fucking colors.
Yeah. Like, and that's my key thing to it, is that I think, once again, Drew is one of those guys that's going to walk into WrestleMania as champ. Same thing with Roman Reigns. I just don't think that there's any reason to have him drop the belt to Goldberg. Even though there is history that would have been made if Goldberg did win it, is that Goldberg would be, like they said, he would be the only
three-time Universal Champion. Oh, wait, no. He would be the only person to have held both, would he? No, Brock.
Yeah, to all three: the World Heavyweight Championship, the WWE Championship, and the Universal Championship. He will be the first to have held all three. So there's history there, but I don't think I think he's there for ratings and for ratings only. And I don't think that. Yeah, like, and I think that I think Goldberg's one of those people that it depends on who you put him in the ring with, how good of a match he turns out. You're not going to put him in the ring with the Undertaker and get a great match out of that. You're just not. Like, both of them are a little bit too. But you put him in the ring with Drew McIntyre, and you can get a pretty decent match out of that.
I think the match that he had with Braun, like, it wasn't a bad match. Was it short? Was it to the point? Yes. Was it bad? I wouldn't say it was horrible. I think we're going to see something like that again. I think we're going to see Goldberg and fucking Drew just slug at each other for fucking 4 minutes and 30 seconds. We're going to see spear. Claymore, done.
Well, I think we'll see one Claymore. I think we'll see spear, jackhammer, kick out. I think we'll see we may see a very safely done, what do they call it? What is his DDT called? McIntyre.
Oh, you mean the Future Shock? The
Future Shock DDT, and then we'll finally see a Claymore, and it'll be over.
Honestly, I'm predicting it now. I think we'll see a spear into a Claymore.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. So, all right, man, let's go ahead and wrap this on up.
All right.
We got some more stuff that we can talk about next week. And guys, we'll keep bringing it to you right here on YouTube and on Spreaker. So, Alpha, any last words for the people?
Oh, you know how it goes. We are here now, not only in visual, but now damn near in 4K now. You can hear me with my brand new beautiful headset on. My people, we are just coming down from this shit. Please, for the love of God, be fucking safe.
Hell yes. So till next week, y'all, we're going to have a little bit of wrestling. We're going to talk a little WandaVision. Episodes 3 and 4 will be out by the time we do another episode. And we'll talk some Royal Rumble with you right here on the Cheap Pop Podcast. Peace.